So I'll just get started. To everyone that's joined, welcome to the second in a new series of monthly webinars from P4P, which is called In Conversation With. My name is Neil Young and I'm one of the coordinators at P4P. My background is primarily in business development and tender writing and partnership development, supply chain work within the third sector, and primarily with social enterprises as well. As coordinator at P4P, I'm responsible for providing one-to-one support to clients or social enterprises, developing and running events or webinars such as these, and developing new resources for our website. If you're new to the In Conversation With series of webinars, which started last month, we are joined by a range of individuals and organisations in the social enterprise sector who are either successfully collaborating with others or are supporting those that are collaborating. This could be for a variety of different purposes. So this could include achieving greater social impact, generating more income, developing new services, or responding to an emerging need. For example, those needs which could have developed or emerged as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's 1 minute in, and I've already said COVID-19. I think that's quite good, isn't it? I could say Brexit as well, and then we've got both. In today's webinar, we are joined by Hannah Eusta, who is the director of the Glasgow Connected Arts Network, which is leading on the development of a new innovative consortium, the Glasgow Arts Partnership. So I'll now let Hannah introduce herself and she'll provide a bit of background information about and her current role.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me along today. So I am a participatory artist by trade. I studied community arts back in the day in the early noughties and worked throughout Glasgow and central Scotland delivering drama, dance, visual arts projects with usually harder to reach groups. Worked in prisons, in the community, in schools, women's groups, and went on to manage a community arts charity in West of Bartonshire for about 5 years called Chaos Community Arts Open Space, and learnt lots there, and then went and did my Masters in Theatre Practices, which focused on participatory theatre activity, and then was lucky enough to get the post at Glasgow Can. And grew it in Glasgow Can is a social enterprise, a community interest company, and that was the first time that I'd managed charities before, mainly. So it was the first time I had managed a social enterprise, and so that's my background. We do this for about 3 years now, and we have lots of programs, and then we came up with this idea.
Thanks, Hannah. So Hannah today is going to provide you with a wee bit of detail about the background to the Glasgow Arts Partnership development, some information around its potential social aims and impact, the next steps in its development, including some launch timescales or project plan, how the consortium could potentially work in practice, as well as some potential service areas, and some kind of spotlighting or showcasing of some of the existing Glasgow Arts Partnership members. So before Hannah's presentation, I'm going to provide you with an introduction to P4P, in case you're joining today's webinar and you don't know anything about us already. There's then going to be a Q&A session following Hannah's presentation. And also please note that you can use the Q&A function at any time. So if you hover, I think it's the same for attendees, if you hover at the bottom, you see a little Q&A box. And we actively encourage you to kind of make this webinar as interactive as possible. If we don't get a chance to answer all of the questions, you'll be provided with Hannah's contact details after the session, so you can feel free to ask her any questions after the session. And also wanted to make you aware that we have a poll running through today's webinar. So the poll, and I think again, if you hover at the bottom, you can see the polls option. So the poll is asking you whether you think Glasgow Arts Partnership could have a positive impact or positive difference to your community. So we'd love for you to take part. So if after listening to Hannah's presentation and some of the questions, you've kind of formed a view on that, please do take part and we'll see the results at the end of the session. And please also note that a recording of today's session will be made available later. So what we did last time was that we made the session, we uploaded the recording onto our YouTube page so that anyone can access it. And we can also provide the slides following the session as well, because some of them are quite heavy in terms of information. So we know that you can't digest everything straight away. So I'm just going to get stuck in. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. There we go. So Hannah, do you see that okay? Yeah, that's good. Right. So the aim of P4P is to increase the long-term sustainability of what we call the enterprising third sector, which is, mostly social enterprise and enterprising charities. One of the main ways that we do this is to support Scottish social enterprises to develop new partnerships or consortia with a view to then bidding jointly for procurement opportunities. We also support collaboration more generally, and this has been particularly relevant due to COVID. So you go, second COVID mention already. Core funding is provided by the Scottish Government through its 10-year social enterprise strategy. And P4P as a project is managed by Social Enterprise Network Scotland and governed by a partnership of Social Enterprise Network Scotland, or SENSCOT, the Scottish Community Alliance and Cooperative Development Scotland. So this slide is summarising some of our activities with the third sector. We offer primarily one-to-one support services for social enterprises, which are funded, and these focus on providing organisations with the knowledge or skills required to both tender for contracts and with developing new partnerships. And you can see there that I provided some examples of that. So that could include drafting a collaboration project plan, a partnership agreement, advice on consortia models, facilitating partnership development sessions, and also support to plan and draft partnership bids for tender opportunities. We run regular events and training sessions. So some of these are funded and free to attend, such as today. But we also have a range of bespoke charged training sessions, which you can find more information about on our website. The P4P website itself is a great source of information on current and upcoming tender opportunities, potential partnership or supply chain opportunities, and we've got an extensive resources database which includes our flagship toolkit resources. This is the collaboration toolkit and the 10-stage guide to procurement, as well as lots of other really useful guidance documents, templates, and case studies. And due to the onset of the COVID pandemic, we also developed a guide called Collaboration During a Crisis, because some of our advice is just a little bit different if you're having to develop a partnership quite quickly, for example. We also offer a range of specialist consultancy services in addition to our funded support. So this includes our procurement health check service, which is a bespoke assessment and evaluation of how tender ready you are, through which you're then provided with a report setting out kind of what your strengths are and areas for improvement. In addition to our work with social enterprise, we also work extensively with partners in the public and private sector in order to achieve our aims. In terms of public sector, our aim is to engage in order to influence and shape procurement policy and legislation primarily. And in terms of the private sector, we offer a social enterprise matching service to support private sector organisations with identifying and then effectively onboarding social enterprise and also supported business suppliers into their supply chain. Since 2018, we've worked quite closely with Morrison Construction in order to do just that. So I've included a couple slides just before, just kind of to finish off this presentation on consortium models. The reason I've included these slides is because today we're going to be discussing an example of a managing agent model. So there are a number of different consortium models that you could adopt when you're looking to form a new partnership. I'm going to go over the four main types briefly to provide you with some background. Managing agent, this is where an existing organisation bids for a contract and then subcontracts 100% of the contract delivery. So focusing instead on managing the contract and acting as the main contact for the buyer. So that is what the Glasgow Arts Partnership is proposing to adopt. This differs from a very similar model called a managing provider model. And that's where the lead organisation not only manages the contract, but also takes on board either part or most of the contract delivery. The managing provider model, which you could also call maybe a lead and subcontractor model or lead provider model, is probably the most common type of consortium model. There's also what we call a super provider consortium model, and this is where a number of organisations come together to form a new legal entity which they jointly own. One type of a super provider consortium is a consortium cooperative. You can also get informal network consortium, and that's where a group of organisations come together to bid for a contract, but there's no lead organisation and no new legal entity is formed. So within the procurement regulations in Scotland, it is possible to do that. We don't often recommend it, as it could be more difficult for the commissioner or public buyer to manage. However, the commissioner or buyer might not mind it, so it could always be an option if they've expressed the opinion that they don't mind if you adopt that model. So I'm now going to hand over to Hannah. That was just a whistle-stop tour of P4P before we begin, and just another plug for the Q&A function. If you've got any questions at any time, please just use the Q&A function. As on a webinar, that's the only way that you can participate. So yeah, Q&A function's at the bottom if you've got any questions for Hannah. So over to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Neil. Right, can you see that okay?
Yeah, I do.
That's great. So I am going to tell everyone a bit more about the journey of GAP so far. So, as Neil has mentioned, I currently run the Glasgow Connected Arts Network, or Glasgow CAN, as I will refer to it as. And our vision is that everyone in Glasgow has access to a rich and varied artistic landscape. The new Glasgow Arts Partnership, or GAP, is led by us. And as I mentioned, we're a community interest company, which exists to nurture and develop the participatory arts sector in Glasgow. We do this through supporting a growing membership of organisations and creative practitioners with things like networking, advocacy, training, funding and development. The new GAP consortium is a new part of our work. To date, we have interest from about 26 freelance practitioners and smaller organisations from our current membership. And we came up with the name through a voting system through them, which I was really pleased with the name that we came up with. And 18 members have regularly attended our working groups, which we've been running since July to formalise the partnership. So the background, this story is how this came about. So in May, way back, I can't believe it was May 2019, but it was, I went along to a training session that Neil was providing about what procurement is, what P4P is. And I had a bit of a light bulb moment where I thought this could potentially work for our sector. The company was looking for new ways at the time as a membership-based CIC to create regular work or partnership opportunities for our members, whilst also strengthening the participatory arts sector and improving our own sustainability through income generation. Because at the time, we were quite grant reliant for a CIC, and we were delivering some products such as training opportunities or consultancy work. I really wanted to identify a way where our members could benefit more through us with opportunities. So that's why I went along to the training. So then support, I spoke to Neil and he thought this had a bit of potential as well. And we got support from P4P secured, which was fantastic, to develop this participatory arts consortium idea further. I did a bit of research. Neil connected me with some other consortia, and I did a wee field trip to Stirling, which was really nice, to the Community Resources Network Scotland, who are their website's there, which you could get if you aren't aware of them. They're great in their consortium, and I got to ask them lots of questions about how they run and what would be applicable and maybe not applicable to us. Then, of course, I consulted the membership because we are a membership-led organisation, and it's really important to us that people were interested in the idea and supported the idea, and the support was very strong. And the working groups formed, and we've had monthly meetings since July of this year. Obviously, there was a wee bit of delay in things because of COVID, but we've managed to keep reasonably on track with our plan. So I am going to play a video that is very short. It's not got any sound or anything, but I wanted to play it because to give an example of what we sent out through our social media streams and to our membership to try and gain interest in the consortium, because I think it describes quite succinctly why we're doing this. So I'm going to play us that. It's only a few minutes. So that gives you an idea of what we sent out, and we received a really good response from our membership, and yeah, 26 people are currently committed to joining when we do launch, which is great. And I think that will improve and increase when we do launch, or the early start of next year when we put out for applications. So why is the consortium needed? Well, why I think the consortium needed and the people that I've consulted with. Historically, any joint funding bids or projects with members led by Glasgow Can has happened on an ad hoc basis, responding to the demand, responding to an opportunity that's out there, or through us commissioning them. So Glasgow Can historically has been funded through Glasgow City Council, through the IGF programme, which is now the Glasgow Communities Fund, to administer a small grant scheme to participatory arts projects. So that means that we have experience, a lot of experience of our members applying to us for projects. So the consortium concept grows the idea and creates a stronger framework for it. So the consortium, I hope, will shift that relationship by creating a new model for delivery, which has been co-designed with the membership whilst responding to community need. So I think that's really important, that this process that we've now spent over a year working together with the membership for what it should look like, as opposed to it being our idea solely as Glasgow Can. The consortium will bridge the gap between practitioners and opportunities, and between opportunities and practitioners. The model will ensure that Glasgow Can is not competing with its members, but instead working together, because that's something else we're really aware of as a membership-based organisation, that if we tendered on our own for a big bid and we were successful, that we would then be subcontracting some of the work anyway, and we would be choosing people on an ad hoc basis. Whereas building a model for this process makes it much fairer and much more inclusive. A clear model will encourage the creation of new partnerships and projects and help to make the industry more resilient and demystify the world of procurement, contracts, funding and business. Because that's the other thing. I mean, I'm not meaning to sound patronising at all, but sometimes when you do speak to people about the world, like artists, grassroots, amazing artists who are on the ground, and you mention words like tendering or procurement or funding bids, because they're so busy doing what they do best, which is being out there delivering, that can seem quite overwhelming. And also they might think that it's not an opportunity for them because they don't have regular audited accounts and that kind of thing. But by being part of the membership, we take that responsibility off of them, and we take the risk, I suppose, of being the lead organisation, and that is subcontracting them. So, and that's a really important part of what we're doing. In turn, it will ensure that public sector bodies and other customers will have a clear understanding of what high quality participatory arts is, best practice for delivery, including things like minimum pay rates for artists, and how participatory arts can deliver on outcomes like health-based outcomes. So it'll work two ways. This will help the membership, so the freelance practitioners and organisations that are part of this, with reaching these opportunities, but it will also work two ways, that we'll have clear guidelines for customers as to why artists cost that much, what the money covers, what you're getting for your money, and the kind of skills base and experience you're getting. The partnership will be interdisciplinary, which is really quite unique in regards to art form and expertise, creating a very diverse group of partners to work with. So if you look at our new website, which you'll get the link for, because we're very pleased with our new website, and you go on the member section, you get a really good idea of the really broad range of expertise that we've got as part of our membership, from visual artists working in the community, dancers, film specialists, consultants that use the arts as a tool to consult with communities, musicians, and a lot of, obviously, there's been a lot of upskilling during this time, so people that are really experienced now in delivering digital youth arts projects, for example. So there's a real wealth of expertise that will be part of this partnership. And also customers will be reassured through this model that all freelance practitioners and organisations involved are an agreed quality standard to deliver the work. So they won't have to do the searching for that standard, because that searching and that checklist, if you like, will already have been done through Glasgow Can. They will also be reassured that members will be kept up to date with relevant policy legislation in order to carry out any projects. So that's part of Glasgow Can's role anyway, is to keep membership up to date with child protection, with things in relation to safeguarding and other policies. So again, that would be part of our role, to make sure that's all really kept up to date, and that potential buyers would have the confidence that that was taking place. So social impact is obviously very important, and participatory arts focuses on social impact, but I wanted to talk a wee bit about that. It's a word that gets bandied about a lot. So when I was preparing for this, I went into that Google burrow of looking at people's definition of social impact. And I like this quote from the Community Scotland website: social impact can be difficult to define. It is often understood as the effects on people and communities that can happen as a result of an action, activity, project, programme or policy. So I guess in this instance, it's GAP. It's the new partnership that we're creating. In the case of the GAP consortium, measuring the social impact of participatory arts will be part of the journey. It sounds cheesy, but it is, because through our reporting systems and our monitoring and evaluation that will be in place for every project, we will be measuring the social impact, and each project is going to be different. And it will be exciting to see what impact they make and start to report publicly on that. The intention is simple though. It's to enable more people in Glasgow than ever before to benefit from accessing the arts. Never before have communities needed creativity more. Access to the arts is a basic human right, and when well facilitated, as it will be by our very experienced partners, people feel connected, vibrant and heard. By bringing together practitioners who are working on the coalface, delivering participant-led projects, communities and thematic groups will have the tools to express the challenges they face daily, such as poverty, discrimination, physical and mental ill health, lack of access to services and opportunities, and together make steps towards positive change. So participatory arts is always participant-led. The artist that is there is the tool for delivering that art form and to make that happen in the room or indeed digitally at the moment. And so that's the kind of impact. I mean, the list of what people are up against at the moment, as you know, is vast, and it could be a very long list, but that's just some kind of examples of the challenges that people in communities are facing and the kind of impact that we would hope to make through the consortium. So a wee bit about the timeline. So as I say, we did start working on it from the summer of last year. 6 months went in very quickly, and then a lot happened after that. But we kept ploughing on with the consortium. And by September, we'd identified interest parties within our membership, and we did a mapping exercise of expertise, which we have, and any kind of resources and things that they could potentially offer. I think we will do that again once we have our kind of official sign up, because obviously we want to be able to show partners what they could be buying in. Monthly working group meetings were established. In terms of reference, we created a terms of reference agreement with support from Neil, and that was signed off by the working group. And we've started developing our policy and processes. The end of this month, we're looking towards to draft and finalise our opportunity selection process and our resource pack development. So people are part of the membership will get a resource pack, and that's the kind of thing that I was talking about that could help them in their practice. So things like risk assessment for templates, guidelines for digital delivery of arts provision, policy on working with people with dementia, any kind of policies that we've developed, GDPR, that could be useful for them will be in the template resource pack. And the opportunity selection process, I think that's one of the most complicated things, is how we choose who's going to deliver what. So that's something that we're working on, at how we do that fairly. So which will probably be, well, will be some kind of point system with a little bit of wiggle room, depending on what people's experience and backgrounds are, and availability as well to deliver the project. So in November, we're going to be doing some market research, finding out who would be interested, potentially what partners could be interested, or buyers or customers, whatever you want to refer to them as, buying in or working with our partnership, the stakeholder engagement. We're going to draft and finalise the operational policies and procedures with the working group. which will bring us nearly to Christmas. We will continue our stakeholder engagement. We've got some nice events with Glasgow Can in December, which will tie in with that, and awareness raising in general of GAP through our social media streams, and hopefully secure some financial support for the administration and development of GAP, because this project is fantastic, but it has grown arms and legs, and we would definitely benefit as a very small organisation ourselves to a wee bit of support so that someone can be doing some of this work and promote the GAP subgroup opportunity. So we need to grow the subgroup, the membership subgroup within our board of directors, because they will be involved in the selection process for who's delivering what project. So hopefully we'll have a wee rest over Christmas and New Year. Who knows what that will look like, but hopefully rest is involved. Well, I'm hoping it will be. And in January, we'll formally invite Glasgow Can members to become members of GAP and promote the opportunity to attract new members. Because last week we got 20 applications to join Glasgow Can as it is, even without that was just in a week. The network is quite in demand. It's kind of come into its own during this strange period. I think people needing connection, wanting to be part of a network. So we're really excited that this is going to be another opportunity that we can promote to our membership. Then by February, we hope to evaluate the applications for membership with the GAP subgroup and finalise initial membership organisations and freelance practitioners. Continue obviously with stakeholder engagement, because we need to keep punting this, and prepare for the launch event. And we aim to launch by the end of March 2021, where we will have a event, which I would love if it was in a space in the centre of Glasgow, a real space, but I guess we're going to plan for both. Obviously there'll be a digital launch, because digital has become such a huge big part of what we do, and it's working really well. So we will have a digital launch, but it would be lovely to think that we might be able to have something happening on the ground in Glasgow as well. But we will just have to wait and see if that'll be what form that will take. So now we're going to kind of visualize how GAP could work in practice. So existing members and new Glasgow Can members can apply to be part of GAP. So there are going to be members, because as I say, we've got hundreds of members, there are going to be members that this isn't for them, and that's totally fine. Maybe they do things very locally, or they're actually based in Ayr, but they're part of Glasgow Can to kind of receive information. So it might not be the right opportunity for everyone, and that's totally fine. But this opportunity will be promoted out regularly, because people might decide that it is something they'd like to engage with. And also we've got new members joining quite regularly. So we'll make sure through our monthly bulletins that the opportunity to join the GAP membership is an option. And as I've mentioned before, 26 members have already expressed interest, including the 18 members that have been part of the working group so far. GAP will be both reactive and proactive in its approach. So this is quite important, because this, I think, is really exciting. So if a GAP member identifies a need in the community, because loads of our members are out there in communities all the time. That could be Springburn. It could be a women's group in Maryhill. They're out there and they know what's happening and the kind of needs that are coming up. And also they're meeting all the time with potential partners. So they might be working in a health centre. They might be working in a school playground. And that is happening still to an extent face-to-face, but a lot of it's happening digitally. So if they have an idea for a project, or even a lead with a potential customer, which can happen, a school says, oh, I'd like to do that project. I'd like a mental health youth arts project in the school. A project plan will be created by Glasgow Can and to find out support for the delivery, or alternatively to sell the project to potential customers such as education, health, housing, large arts bodies, private sector, councils, or any other third sector organisations. So it could be that way where we're proactive. We decided a project as a consortium. we put together the plan and we go out there and try and either sell it to be bought in or to find funding for it through funding opportunities. Or the alternative, and the reactive alternative, which we'll also do, be part of my role or Glasgow CAD's role, is if an opportunity to tender for a project arises or a funding stream opens, GAP will decide if it's worth pursuing and whether or not we're going to put in a bid and who would be working with us on that bid. So that's the reactive and proactive approach. The hope will be that GAP will be a one-stop shop for practitioners and members, thematic groups, local communities, partners and customers who want to carry out a participatory arts project in and around Glasgow. And this kind of framework, I think, allows for there not to be cliqueiness, because the opportunity to join, no matter your background, will be available regularly. Stakeholders benefit from a wide range of expertise within the partnership and the management agent process for selecting who will be subcontracted to deliver the hands-on work. So that's a real benefit, that they don't have to sift through who they're going to work with. That would be Glasgow CAN's role. Glasgow CAN has experience selecting practitioners to deliver work through previous Glasgow City Council funded activities, for example, working with our growing membership of over 330 sole traders and small companies. GAP will support Glasgow CAN to be more sustainable. So from my point of view, this is one of the reasons why I want to do this. It's for the social impact, it's for the members, but I've also got to have a business hat on. And from a business point of view, GAP will support Glasgow CAN to be more sustainable as a CIC through income generation from each project to administer it. And GAP could be a model or a way of working across Scotland or even in other areas of the UK. Just having a wee drink of water. So I wanted to give you a wee idea of some of the people that are involved so far. So we've had the freelance member Martha Leishman, who has attended all of our working group meetings so far. And then an example of an organisation-based member is Ecodrama, who isn't part of the working group, but who have expressed an interest in joining the consortium once we launch. The visual that you see there, you can see Martha in the middle of a fantastic group of women. In December, I was invited along to their Speaking Out project. So that was an amazing project. It's just a good example of the kind of thing that Glasgow CAN has supported in the past and the kind of concept that could be rolled out or grown through GAP. So Martha worked at the Women's Centre with New Scots and worked with them on their presentation skills, where they told their stories of their journeys to Glasgow and also what they thought of Glasgow when they got here, which was really funny. The getting other people's perspective on our wonderful city was really, really interesting. And it would obviously in turn to help with kind of interview skills, with getting into college, getting work opportunities. It was a really good project. And there's another image below there from Ecodrama's Out to Play project, which is another project Glasgow CAN have commissioned in the past. So Ecodrama have got this wonderful project about storytelling in areas of deprivation in schools, where they look at the environment, they explore the arts, and it can only really happen if they've got a bit of funding or they get bought in from a school. So becoming part of GAP, I think, could really benefit to grow that programme, which is a fantastic programme, and make it happen in other schools across the city. So that's the kind of example of a couple of people that are currently involved and the potential there. As you can see, we've got the links underneath that you will get when you receive the slides if you want to find out a bit more about those projects, and have a good look at our membership database on our website now, which gives you a really good idea of who we could link in with. So I can't finish without punting a couple of opportunities that we've got coming up. So we are lucky enough to receive support already from Creative Scotland, Glasgow City Council, and the Lottery, Young Start programme. So, but part of our Creative Scotland programme that we currently deliver is training and development for the participatory arts sector. And we've got one coming up next week called Get That Funding, which I actually deliver myself, which is aimed at people that have got very little experience, little to none experience of applying for project funding for participatory arts. So I'll be delivering that next week. And then we've got a youth arts programme that's funded through the lottery, and we have gone completely digital. So we're running a session in November about our kind of experience as a journey with transferring what was very much a face-to-face service into an online service, what best practices, how to safeguard in that circumstance, and the kind of things that have worked and things that have not worked so well. So if anyone's got particular interest in that, then sign up, and they are both currently free opportunities, although you do have the option of giving us a contribution towards running costs at the moment. That's our kind of COVID compromise. So thank you very much for listening to our presentation, to my presentation. And yeah, as Neil mentioned, we've got the Q&A option if you've got any questions. And when the slides go out, you've got all our kind of contact details there, and also how to sign up for a member if you or someone you know is interested in signing up for a membership. And that's me.
Good. Thank you, Hannah. That was really interesting. And I think it's particularly interesting for me, not just, I think for two reasons. Number one, through kind of my day-to-day work, but also as a Glasgow resident and adopted Glaswegian. So I'm going to kick off the Q&A with a question from ourselves. So what do you think the advantages are for commissioners or funders of the particular consortium model that you are adopting, which is a managing agent style model where you are the lead organization, but you're not delivering yourself, you know, and as a membership organization that can, you know, be particularly suitable.
Yeah, I think it's appealing to a customer because I'm the one-stop shop. So they just need to contact and deal with me for reporting, and I think that's really clear, and it's good to have that main contact person. And because I've already got such a good relationship with the members, that they'd have confidence that if anything, you know, needed sorted out, that I would contact them and deal with the subcontract. So I think just having that one point of call for potentially quite a lot of different expertise and skills, I think is really beneficial.
Okay, thank you. We have got one question in. Well, actually, we've had quite a lot of questions in the chat. So we'll try our best to get through them in the next 18 minutes.
Yeah.
So first, what have been the biggest challenges that you've experienced so far, and how have you overcome them? So this isn't a job interview. This sounds like a job interview.
Yeah. No. I think obviously anything that's worth doing is filled with loads of challenges. So making it really, doing this without any financial support. Obviously Glasgow has financial support, so we have a vision that this is going to be good. So doing that though in a micro team, if you like, there's only 3 part-time members of staff, that is obviously a really big challenge, but it's also been really exciting. COVID-19 has obviously been a challenge because we had to spend, like most other organisations, all other organisations had to spend a few months, you know, when it all hit, getting all our other services online, making sure that our members and participants were okay, that we were providing for them what they needed. So that's caused a bit of a delay. So those are the kind of biggest challenges. And also, I guess, people who were really on board before COVID hit through our membership, we've not actually had a lot of drop off, which shows that this is really beneficial. But just being able to be a wee bit more aware that, say, if I'm sending out a document or something like that for approval, that there might be a bit of a delay compared to before because of people's personal circumstances and because of the pandemic. So those would be the kind of biggest challenges, I would say.
Okay. So we've had a question in from Ashley Smith Hammond. And I always feel like I'm on the radio.
Yeah.
Whenever we do this section in the webinar. So Ashley's asking, she's interested to hear more about how you're going to do social impact measurement. And is there any particular models you're drawing from, and are there standard metrics that will build and be comparable over time?
So I guess we do, because we are very used to measuring the kind of social impact of participatory arts. It will depend on the project. We do have reporting systems that we are very confident in, but I think that is something that we need to look at closely before we launch, to make sure that they're adaptable for each project, and as Ashley mentions, that they are kind of comparable. Can you tell me the question again? Make sure I'm answering it.
Yeah, so it's how you're going to do social impact measurement. Is there any particular models you're drawing from? So I mean, it might be something that you might want to engage with someone like Evaluation Scotland, perhaps, prior to kind of launching formally or after launching formally.
Yeah.
Ashley's also asking about the size, and it's for kind of myself or you, Hannah, but Ashley, she's asking about the size of the opportunities for procurement in creative and arts sector. I think that's a really good question, and there was a lot of discussion about this in the working group, I would say. I've kind of regularly been sending Hannah kind of opportunities in arts and creative industries and participatory arts more generally. But as Hannah mentioned, and I'll pass over to you in a second, but you talked about it being a lot wider than just procurement. It's about being proactive, seeking funding, engaging with stakeholders, creating opportunities with potential public buyers, potentially working with private sector, getting commissions from private sector. So, I think anything is really on the table here, as long as it's kind of very much what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of doing that anyway as part of my role. So this is building a framework that everyone will be aware of, so that everyone can work within, sorry. But I'm constantly looking for opportunities. So I'm constantly looking at what funding opportunities are out there, building relationships with health, the council, and I feel that if this is in place, that I'll be ready to go on things, rather than being a really kind of happening in a really ad hoc way, and that will have a really clear system for bringing in the membership as well. So, but also because the partnership will be meeting regularly, we'll be exploring our own ideas for projects, because we know what we want to do. We're the ones that are out there working in communities, and we know what might work and what might benefit. So rather than just responding to get at other people's ideas, as you say, Neil, we'll be creating our own ideas and pitching them to potential buyers. So, yeah.
And I suppose stakeholder engagement is going to be really key.
Yeah.
So another question, Claire is asking, can you talk more about how you think the process of deciding who's going to deliver what is going to look like? So I suppose this is the opportunity selection kind of process that you mentioned, isn't it?
Yeah, so I guess this is a tricky bit, but it is something that I've become very experienced in, and I like to imagine that we manage pretty well as an organisation. And I think if everybody's aware of that's how it will work from the start, then hopefully people will be okay within the system. So there will be a kind of standard form that we have. So when we see an opportunity, I'll explain what the opportunity is, or when we've decided on an opportunity, and the member of the partnership will complete that. We'll see how many applications we get in, and then we will have regular kind of assessment panels, and we decide, and we'll give feedback, obviously, as to who. And it could be geographically based. So if it's a Maryhill project, then you would get extra points for being a Maryhill grassroots based organisation, because that's something we feel really strongly about within our organisation, that being local and having local knowledge is really, really important. So that's the kind of thing that will weight the system. Or for example, it seems kind of obvious, but if it's a women's project, people from African, Asian, ethnically diverse communities, if the it should ideally be led by someone with lived experience. So those qualities will very much lead our decision-making processes as well, to get the kind of right person for the job. We will have an appeals process, because I think that's really important, but really hoping that it works more in a partnership kind of way, that people, and it does within our network, can step back and say, yeah, do you know what, this is the right project for that artist because they do have a lived experience. I've seen what they've done in the past, they're fantastic, and hopefully there'll be future opportunities. So yeah, regular subgroup meetings where the applications are assessed and feedback given, and a point system are really heavily weighted for lived experience and also past experience of delivering similar projects.
Okay, that's really interesting. You actually touched on their kind of geographically based projects. So, because I know we have some people attending today that are kind of not based maybe around Greater Glasgow, and I suppose Greater Glasgow itself is a fluid term because there's potentially no such thing. But would you be open to working outside the Glasgow or kind of Greater Glasgow area?
So that came up. You were the last. We need to make a final decision on that. So obviously, as a social enterprise, any money that comes in goes to benefit Glasgow, is spent to benefit Glasgow. But I guess if we could deliver a project because we have this specific participatory arts expertise somewhere else in the country, any income would still then go back into helping Glasgow. So yeah, if I'm honest, a final decision on that needs to be made. So watch this space. but also I think it's such an interesting model that we would encourage similar partnerships to happen in other parts of the country and then link with them. So I would like to imagine that one day, if there was a similar partnership in Aberdeen, and if someone contacted me for an Aberdeen project, that I'd refer that on to them. I think that would be better.
That's pretty good. Tony is asking, is there any kind of prerequisite in terms of experience for membership of GAP?
Yeah, so there will be an application process. So for example, moment, to join Glasgow Can in itself, you have to apply on the website. And when I first started with Glasgow Can, we had like 62 members or something, and it's grown to say 320. We've had to be a bit more careful with who we say yes to, in the sense that to making sure that we're the right organisation for them. So this would apply also to GAP, because for example, sometimes people get in touch with me and say, I'm trying to find funding to put on an exhibition in Edinburgh, can you help me? And I've had to, as only being one person, I've had to get back, and I don't have expertise in putting on an exhibition in Edinburgh, so I've had to get back to them and I always try and signpost on to someone else who might be able to help them. So I guess it's the same with GAP, that we will have a very specific what is participatory arts? Do you deliver participatory arts? Even if you're quite early in your career, why do you want to do this? What is your ethos? What is your approach? And if it aligns with that, then you can be a part of the consortium.
Great. So I hope that answers your question, Tony. We've got another question from Claire, and she was asking about how easy it was to convince the board of Glasgow Can that developing GAP was a good idea, and I can kind of guess your answer here.
Well, yeah, it was okay. I mean, I think that our board are very, very supportive, and I think that something we were very keen on was developing more income generation schemes that also benefited the membership. And I think they agreed that this concept did both at the same time. So it was a big tick and thumbs up from them, in the sense that it meets our mission, vision and aims, which is what they're always coming back to. What's our strategic vision? And it fits with that. So Neil came and did a talk at one of our board meetings. It's on our agenda at every board meeting. So yeah, they're quite behind it. I mean, obviously, I think they wish that we had some more financial investment than we do, but hopefully we will in time.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, because if you're attending today and you do have potential financial investment,
or you know,
get in touch.
Exactly, or someone that does, then yes, please get in touch.
So I think we have just about enough time for maybe one or two more questions. Claire is also asking, what are your plans once you formally launch the consortium? So obviously that will depend on what happens over the next kind of 6 months, but is there any kind of priorities, really, I suppose, when you formally launch?
So again, it's the proactive reactive thing, isn't it? So we will respond, obviously be checking Public Contract Scotland to see if there's anything that aligns with us and going for that. But I'd also like to hold a development session where, for all the new members, to kind of come up with some project concepts that we could build project plans and work out where we'd like to seek support from. So yeah, it would depend who finally gets involved and what kind of work we want to do, but it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, why is participatory art, why do you think the arts in particular can be used to create social impact or change?
So I have a lot of personal experience in this. Sometimes people come along to a participatory arts project because someone has made them. So you think of a young person that they might be referred to a programme, or you come along because you've seen a poster, and you're maybe going along because you like the art form, or you've maybe never done it before, and it can almost be a kind of sneaky way of it could be overt, and that you're coming because you've always wanted to do stained glass, and within that workshop you discuss this dilapidated building and what it could look like in a building that belongs to the community, and how could we change that building together. Or it could be, for example, in my experience with young people who are very, very unlikely to experience the arts because it costs money or because it's not happening in their area, and you come in, or ideally someone who's grown up within the area and has that dual kind of knowledge of the area and some creative expertise, and you can really help them, support them, empower them to change, have a voice, be heard. It can be simply be heard to what's affecting them, and from a very, very community-based perspective, or to find opportunities to suit them, to build that confidence and self-esteem in themselves that they have been affected by because of, especially now, if ever, now because of their environment, or simply that feeling of community cohesion. So, and think about the isolation that is happening at the moment. People have never been so isolated, and I think that participatory arts can play a massive role, whether it's digital, and we're aware of digital poverty and we're linking with partners to help with that, or whether it be face-to-face, to help people of all ages and backgrounds feel connected and feel less isolated, in order to be happier, really.
Thank you for that. I can definitely understand the social isolation over the last 6 months. It's just me, my cat, and a pokey wee Glasgow tenement, so I can
exactly.
So that is all we have time for today. Special thanks to Hannah for taking part in today's session. It's been really great having you on, especially because you're a client and I've been working quite closely with you. Thank you as well to all the attendees and for asking lots of really interesting and some tough questions.
Yeah.
In terms of the poll, we had 75% of attendees taking part, and 100% of all attendees have agreed that that they think Glasgow Arts Partnership could have a positive impact in your community. I swear I didn't bribe anyone to say that, so that's nice.
Thank you. Yeah, and I
sorry,
just wanted to say thank you so much for having us along and for the support as well at P4P that you personally and the organisation has given Glasgow CAN so far with this. It's really appreciated.
You're welcome. Remember to check out the P4P website to access any of our resources and understand what services we offer. There's a contact us form on the website. Please also do check out the Glasgow CAN website for more information about Glasgow CAN members and some of its work. And just to remind you again, a recording of today's session is going to be made available after in case you missed something or want to go back over something. And we're also going to be sharing the slides and contact details. So next month's webinar is going to be with the Community Resources Network Scotland, CRNS, who are going to be speaking about their reuse consortium and other bits of work that they're involved in terms of collaboration. And this is being held as part of the SE Restart and Rebuild Week, which Scott is holding week commencing 16th of November. And I'm afraid you're going to be stuck with me again for the next for the next webinar. So thank you again, everyone. So and that's us.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. See you later.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.